Nice. Aw. All right. So ignore the little 11 Energy Partners thing. I tried to delete that and apparently failed. My name is Bali Kumar. I'm CEO of Leaning Green Michigan. We are the statewide PACE administrator in Michigan. What is PACE? PACE is a financing mechanism, and you're going to find this odd because you're going to be like, well, this is a residential conference. But it's a financing mechanism for commercial, multifamily, industrial, agricultural, and nonprofit property owners to access long-term financing, like think up to 25 years, so that way things can really pay themselves off, and there are no upfront costs. So let's just focus on the multifamily portion because those are the case studies I'll go through, and that's the most applicable. So we are the administrator, which means that we liaise with property owners and lenders and contractors. We sort of manage the marketplace for PACE. So we matchmake lenders and contractors. We have online contractor trainings. We educate stakeholders around the state. So tomorrow I'll be in Midland and then West Branch. And we handle a lot of the paperwork for PACE deals. This is our current map of participating jurisdictions, 25 counties and 15 cities, representing 71% of the population. So, we bring on jurisdictions when there are deals in that jurisdiction. That seems to be the best method for us. So far, $24 million of, we call it commercial PACE, has been financed. There are 36 states plus DC that have PACE legislation. And I'll take a step back. PACE it stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. In Michigan, the Property Assessed Clean Energy Act of 2010 enabled PACE. Every state has different PACE legislation. So some states like California and Florida allow for residential PACE and commercial PACE. So basically everything we do plus all the rest. Michigan does not. I mean, who knows what the legislation will hold for the future, but we are just focusing on the multifamily space in addition to the other commercial, industrial, and nonprofit type of properties. Nationally, over 1,900 commercial PACE projects have been financed. And I guess just to give context with respect to our PACE, residential PACE, it's a much bigger market actually. Over 5 billion has been financed, but again, not in Michigan, so don't worry. But why PACE, right? Energy waste is something huge, and it's something a lot of folks are really thinking. Oh, like a lot of folks call in, they're like, we want to do solar, and we're like, well, what about your building envelope? And they're like, we want to do solar, and we're like, that's cool, but you should do the biggest project possible because what's the sense in doing solar if it's just all going out of the cracks of your building? So energy efficiency is really important, and a ton of energy is already wasted. So so PACE is really like the big things that folks focus on is that there's no down payment, so you can do a ton of things. Let's say to your multifamily property, but pay nothing, and it's non-recourse, and there's no personal guarantee. So it's something that runs with the land. It's a property tax assessment. It's a voluntary assessment. And so that means that if you sell the property, you walk away because the assessment runs with the land. It's on the property. It's not with the owner. Um, per statute, the cash flow has to be positive. So not equal, definitely not negative, but there's a savings to investment ratio that needs to be calculated, and that savings to investment ratio must be greater than one. So we're seeing projects where folks are financing 800,000, and over the life of the loan, saving 2.1 million. So it's really worth doing because they're coming out of pocket zero and saving from the beginning throughout. Um, some people are passing down the PACE assessment to tenants. So either through raising rents because they're saying, well, if you're going to pay 1,300 a month and pay 150 in energy bills, you'll actually just pay 1,400 a month and not worry about energy bills. Um, fixed interest up to 25 years is useful to calculate whether the investment is worth it. A lot of banks per se, if people are going to banks and they're thinking, I'm going to do all these upgrades, and the bank is like, okay, great, we'll give you a 5-year fixed loan. That's not really helpful to figure out if it's worth it, and even if it's, even if you can get a 20-year loan, because who knows what the interest rate will be after year 5. So the fixed interest is useful for pro formas, and PACE is really useful for retrofits. That's sort of the classic PACE case, for gut rehabs, and for new construction projects. But also, refinancing of these projects is also possible through PACE. How does it work? Got to have the right property. So it needs to be in a PACE district. So I showed you the map earlier of the 40 PACE jurisdictions around the state. There are 4 in Kent County. Kent County does not have a PACE district, but Grand Rapids does. Kentwood does. I don't know. I have to go back to the list. But multifamily is the right type of property also. The property owner can't be delinquent on property tax bills because it's property tax assessment, and that doesn't really bode well if you can't keep up with the property tax. So that's something that we look out for as well. If there's, if the jurisdiction's not doesn't have a PACE district, that's fine. We can sort that out. That's part of why I travel around the state so much and talk to folks. Um, the property has to be, has to be a healthy property. Has to be continued to be used over the life of the loan. The property value has to be sufficient to support a loan, and it can't be overly leveraged. And so, what's a good project? The PACE Act allows for pretty much anything energy efficiency or water conservation related. It includes renewable energy. Statute is super broad, so even things that haven't been invented yet that will result in savings are okay. So insulation, lighting, windows, geothermal, solar, wind. In Detroit, folks are thinking a lot about stormwater runoff because there are all these extra charges for that. Pretty much anything. PACE is mostly for larger projects. The smallest PACE deal we've done is 117,000 in financing, for high utility bills, so that way you can offset these utility bills and have that offset more than pay off the loan. Um, so PACE makes sense for projects with longer paybacks, and there's no upper limit for PACE projects. There's one PACE project that was $40 million. I don't know if that was in Texas or California, but there's some really big ones out there. And let's see, understand the PACE process. So what we do is we help folks determine eligibility. Some people call and we can immediately tell that they're not eligible for PACE. We do a lot of referrals over to Michigan Saves. You'll hear from Michigan Saves shortly. The property value matters, and we do all the checks. Then there's an initial energy analysis where folks will sort of either walk through an existing structure and say, ooh, those lights, you should probably fix those lights. Those windows have holes, and so does the roof. Just to determine if there's a viable deal, but also, if it's a new construction or just a complete gut rehab, then the architectural plans is something that folks will look at and say, oh, looking at these plans, you could improve X, Y, and Z. So the initial energy analysis sort of determines viability. We match folks with lenders, so securing financing. There are about 2 or 3 dozen lenders from around the nation that lend, and we encourage competition because, why pay whatever interest rate from the first person you hear when you can get 5 more term sheets and get something cheaper? Um, we're seeing lenders and contractors develop relationships where uh, there aren't many lenders that have boots on the ground in Michigan, so they're liaising with contractors in Michigan who are already out, knocking doors and stuff. And if, for instance, someone, there's a contractor who installs geothermal, they can just use that contractor to funnel projects into their pipeline. Oh yeah, I guess interest rates we're seeing sort of between 5.5% and 7.5% fixed over 20 or 25 years. So it results in low, low repayment per semi-annual payments. Obviously, there needs to be a proper energy audit done so that way we can determine if the savings to investment ratio is really there. We have an application. So if there is another lender in play, so if there's a bank that has a mortgage on the property, they have to consent to a PACE loan because essentially they're being subordinated. And so the PACE loan comes in as a property tax. Property taxes get paid in the event of foreclosure first. Um, but we talk to lenders about lender consent all the time. There are about 180 lenders nationwide that have consented to PACE loans, so not really an issue, but it's just something that makes the process a little bit longer. So let us know if there's a consent, and we should be involved. Depends on the agency, depends on the type of property. Um, one of them, let's see, I think Fannie Mae doesn't consent. Freddie Mac does consent under certain circumstances with respect to multifamily. Uh, Include us in conversations for consent just because we know all the nuances. We do the documentation and we help with the closing. When the project is done, there has to be an installation verification letter so that way we know that people were taking the money and using it for the energy upgrades. And there's measurement and verification throughout. So folks sign up for Energy Star Portfolio Manager. This helps them track, what their energy use was before and what it is now, and produces nifty graphs. That's pretty nice. Pace has been stacked with, we always tell folks that if there's some sort of DTE or consumers rebate or incentive, that they should use it because free money is free. Why would you not? There's a case study that we have that stacked historic tax credits and brownfield uh, with PACE and traditional financing, and that was a multifamily. Obviously, folks should be using the solar tax credits before they start to sunset. Um, there are all these match loans and other incentives as well. Case studies. So for multifamily, we've done 3 multifamily deals, and they've all actually been kind of small. Um, so the first one was a 15-year term, and it's the smallest one we've done. It was 117,580 financed over 15 years. But over the life of the loan, the including paying back the loan and interest, there's still a net savings of 68,000. Same thing with Hatchery and Ionia. These are 20-year terms. They finance around 200,000 each, and over the life of the loan, after paying back the principal and interest, they're still going to save uh, about 200,000 each. You go on our website, we have featured projects and case studies. Um, have recently launched a couple of new things just to sort of get more interest in the market. Some folks have smaller projects, so projects under $250,000. The statutory requirements are easier, and so we have a Pace Express model that we've come up with. Also, for new construction, we've sort of codified a policy based on our neighbors in Wisconsin that have a similar statute. And so, we're trying to incentivize people to build new builds above code. And contact me or check out the website if you have any questions, and I'll be here all night.